Welcome, everyone, to the Apoco-Larry podcast. I'm Steve. He is
Dr. Larry.
Dr. Larry. It emphasizes the title, and it's friendly at the same time.
I want to get a show like Dr. Phil, where I do biblical studies, but I'm not really good. But
but it plays well on afternoon TV.
It does play well. And actually, the couple times I heard him, he actually wasn't bad at all.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There you go.
But I don't want to support him because, others don't.
Yes.
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 And I want to be a part of the group, the cancel culture.
Yes, there's several things I'd like to cancel out of culture.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
So today, Stephen,
yes.
because you and I did so well last week.
Oh, it was great. It was perfect.
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we did exactly what we were supposed to do last week, right?
We totally did. One of our listeners came and said, you didn't even do the right book.
Huh.
But it was odd how close those chapters were.
Yeah.
But all the way through, I remember I kept saying, this doesn't feel quite right.
Yes.
Well, that was because it was the wrong book. However, in the original, Ezra and Nehemiah were one book, so we weren't that far off.
Oh, nice. See, and don't take the blame yourself. I'm the one that threw it up on the screen and said, "Is this what we're doing?"
I marched right through it, and then we got to 10, and I was like, "Isn't 10 a list of names? What's going on?" But that same listener, who will not be mentioned by name, also said you completely missed 6 and 7. So we did 4 and 5, then we did 8, and then we did 9 from a wrong book. So today we'll do 6 and 7, we'll skip 8, and then we'll go from there. So today is 6 and 7, my friend.
Okay. And so Ezra 6 and 7. No, I'm just joking. It's
Nehemiah. Yes. No, Nehemiah. Hey, it's one book. It's one book in the original.
Folks,
I say original, but I just should say I wonder if original is proper.
Or in the Hebrew Bible.
The Hebrew Bible has one book. I don't know about the Septuagint.
Yeah. Folks, anyway. I should confess that when Larry and I connected up tonight on Zoom, I actually was displaying Ezra 10 and said, "Is this what we're doing?" And he's like, "You jerk." So yes, I'm that bad of a person. Okay, anything you want to say about Ezra 6 and 7 before we jump in?
No, except this is further opposition to the rebuilding. Yeah. And and this, by the way, this is Sanballat and the boys, and Geshem the Arab, which always makes me think of. Wasn't there a song by Stephen, some goofy guy called Ahab the Arab?
Yeah.
Oh, he was American, obviously, because it was Ahab the Arab.
Yeah. That's no one can pronounce things like the Americans can.
No, and I've decided not to mock it, because at one point I was mocking the Americans a little bit. Because they say foyer instead of foyer, because in Canada we say foyer.
Yes.
And it's a French word.
Yeah.
But then I was watching Downton Abbey, and the British say foyer.
Yes.
And I realized the British would say foyer because they're basically saying, screw you, France. Every chance they get.
That's right. It's bad enough that we had to go fight in Normandy that we've got to go do this too. So
Yes. I hope screw is not too bad a word for it.
No. I think
I had a guy that I worked for that was offended by that, but I didn't like him at all.
Yeah.
No,
I wouldn't either. That's fine.
No.
All right.
Well, no, you can't, because I don't. So you obviously don't either. So Sanballat and the boys are going to come against Nehemiah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, folks, open your Bible apps or your Dead Tree Bibles to Nehemiah 6. We're in Nehemiah 6, not Ezra, like I was joking, but Nehemiah. And we'll just read a few paragraphs, and then we'll let Larry jump in with some wisdom. When the word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall, and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not yet set the doors and the gates. Remember, we talked about the fish gate, the dung gate, all that kind of stuff. Those are those gates. Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message: "Come and let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono." Okay.
I like that the plain is called Ono.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But you're going to find out in the next little bit that you're going to read why they wanted to do that.
Yes, and the plain of Ono is where John Lennon's wife was from.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
They were scheming to harm me, so I sent messages to them with this reply: I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it to go down to you? 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. Then the 5th time, Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message. And in his hand was an unsealed letter, in which it was written, it is reported among the nations, and Geshem, because they had to single them out, says it is true that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and therefore you are building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you are about to become their king, and even appointed prophets to make this proclamation about you in Jerusalem. There is a king in Judah. Now this report will get back to the king. So come, let us meet together.
So you see what they've done, eh? They've tried so hard to get him to come, and so that they could probably kill him. And he says that, they planned to kill me. And then they brought this letter. Now, when he says an unsealed letter, that's to show that they weren't completely bright, because if it came from anybody important, it would be a sealed letter, and that was the point.
With a signet kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and depending on the level of it, yeah, it would have a wax seal and the signet ring. And so you're saying, they're not the brightest boys on the block.
Yes, my enemy is not maybe as calculating as they think they are.
Yeah, almost like the demons that called. Remember, Jesus cast the demons out, and the demon said to him, "Okay, we're gone." And he was like, you're still there because you're talking to me."
Yeah.
Yeah. Sanballat the Samaritan was about that level. But there was also, because that one guy said that they should have been better to the Samaritans, you got to know that Sanballat and them were very harsh to the Jews as well. Like they did not want any of this stuff to happen.
Right.
And so I tend to disagree with that, the one who was saying, they were doing it wrong all the way through Ezra, Nehemiah in the 3 places. I love the guy who does that. It's the Bible Prophecy Project or the Bible Project. Yep. And the guy is fantastic, but I think this is one place where I disagree with him. I really don't think, I think Nehemiah is doing the right thing here. Okay,
verse 8 now, folks. I sent him this reply. Nothing like what you are saying is happening. You're just making it up out of your head. Oh, well, nothing's changed in politics all these years.
No.
They were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for work and it will not be completed. But I prayed, now strengthen our hands. One day I went to the house of Shema, the son of this other guy and the son of another other guy, who was shut in at his home. And he said, let us meet in the house of God inside the temple, and let us close the doors, because men are coming to kill you. By night, they are coming to kill you. But I said, should a man like me run away, or should someone like me go to the temple to save his life? I will not go. I realized that God had not sent him, which is an interesting take here, but that he had prophesied against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. He had been hired to intimidate me, so I would not commit a sin, or would commit a sin by doing this, and then they would give me a bad name to discredit me. Remember Tobiah and Sanballat, my God, because of what they have done, and also remember the prophet Noadiah, and how she and the rest of the prophets were trying to intimidate me. So the wall was completed on the 5th of Elul in 52 days. Yeah.
So remember, they did all of that work on the wall, and then there's tons of work that they did on that wall all the way around, and they accomplished that in less than 2 months, which is pretty amazing, right?
Yes.
But I do like, and I like that the prophet is a woman.
Yeah.
Is that the woman? Was it the female prophet that tried to get him to go into the temple, Stephen? It was, wasn't it? Or was it not? Let's go back up.
If you take a look at verse 10 there, it was went to the house of Shemelah. Or Shemaiah.
Oh yeah, it was Shemelah. It was night Shemalala.
Yeah. Shemaiah. I don't know. I can't
Yeah.
say these
Of
people names.
Metabel. Yeah. So I don't know why all of a sudden he throws in this female prophet right near the end, but they've been trying to intimidate him, and she was one of them trying to intimidate him. Interesting that you're doing God's work, and it's actual prophets that are coming out and trying to intimidate you so that you don't do the work, right? And I'm guessing these are prophets from Samaria. Yeah. And are they actual prophets, or are they just prophets by occupation and title?
Yeah.
And I don't know that either.
Isn't that interesting, right? Like a prophet for hire type deal. Like, you could look that person up on Kijiji and go, oh, I need a prophet, so I think I'll hire this guy or this lady.
Yeah. Yeah, like the prophets of Baal and then with Elijah in that other place, and Balaam as well, who was an actual prophet and tried to prophesy against Israel and couldn't.
Okay.
So there are strange things that go on. But anyway, they're all after Nehemiah, and they couldn't. They tried to join with him early on, and now you don't even know, because that other guy would have said that was all legitimate. Now you don't even know how legitimate it was. Like, was all of this a ploy to keep the Jews out of Jerusalem?
Right.
So there's a lot of things that are going on here that you really don't know. What you do know is that Nehemiah got those walls built in 52 days.
Yeah.
And there were guys with their families, and remember the guy with his daughters, they built one section of the wall, and other people built another section of the wall. And we talked about that before, where we said, how is it that everybody knows how to build a wall in those days? I'm pretty sure if Steve and Larry got together and built the wall, they wouldn't even be concerned, because it may not be that good a wall. Which is an unfair comment on my friend Steve, but
no, it's the utter truth. You and I'd be looking at it going, I don't know. Let's throw some rocks over here and see what happens.
Yeah. So the opposition to the completed wall. So now we finish off this chapter.
Okay. Verse 16 now, folks. When all our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence, because they realized this work had been done with the help of our God, not without, but with the help of our God. Also, those days, the nobles of Judah were sending many letters to Tobiah, and replies from Tobiah kept coming to them. For many in Judah were under oath to him, since he was the son-in-law of a famous guy, and married the daughter of some other famous guys, which I won't even say. Moreover, they kept reporting to me his good deeds and kept telling him what I said. And then telling him what I said. And Tobiah sent letters to intimidate me. Isn't that hilarious? Like, they're just talking him up. Oh, he's a really good guy. Really, he's a good guy.
Yeah. And Tobiah, they're still trying to get him to stop.
Yeah.
It's quite an amazing book, really. It's the whole idea of, I'm going to trust God completely, and yet I'm going to be prepared for whatever comes. But when they get it done in 52 days, he gives God all of the credit.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, hey, look at us. I mean, we are some kind of wall builders. He says, this is all God. And that's a choice that you make when you do stuff and it's successful. It's the choice you make to give God the glory and the credit. Yeah.
Good point, Larry. That's a great message. Like, Nehemiah is such a great person of pray and then do.
Yeah. And remember in the early chapter, he said, with a sword in one hand and a trowel in the other. And so we were prepared for them, but we kept building. Yeah. And then he wouldn't back down. He would not back down,
right? Which
is pretty cool.
Yep.
And leadership is leadership, Steve.
Yeah.
The people, at any point in time, they can come against and try to kill you.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking about David that time when his guys, they wanted to kill him. The people that had been following him all this time, and he built up this whole group, and he had the really brave guys that went and got the water for him and stuff.
Right.
And yet when things went bad, some of the people in that group thought that they should just kill him.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, it even describes them as men of renown, right? Isn't that how it describes them?
I can't recall, but we will look that up, you and I.
Yeah.
Or not.
Or not. Maybe for another time, maybe not. But anyway, it's so true. So true. He set such a bar.
Yeah.
So now, Larry, as we transition over to chapter 7, what are we going to see here?
They're just going to talk about the list of exiles that returned.
Okay. Folks,
and I will tell you the name of Hananiah, the commander. Just a nice name.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's kind of good to sing. So verse 1, chapter 7, folks. After the wall had been rebuilt and I had set the doors in place, the gatekeepers, the magicians, I was mixing musicians and magicians together, and I came with magicians. Anyway, the musicians, there was not magicians there, and the Levites were appointed. I put in charge.
I'm going to just stop for 1 second and say, yes, appointing the Levites is really important for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Samaritans didn't have Levites. Remember, the Levites that was Benjamin, Judah, and they chose, the priests and stuff came out of the clan of the Levites. But when Jeroboam created Samaria, he just chose ordinary people to be priests. So to go back and choose Levites, the other thing was, this was not an easy thing to do because they had all gone into exile, and they had to keep track of these families to know who the actual Levites were, who were the children of Levi. To be the priests and the temple workers again. So there's a lot that's going on here, and it's really important stuff that's happening in around, what are we saying, 450 BC.
Okay. I put in charge of Jerusalem my brother Hananiah, along with Hananiah, the commander of the citadel, because he was a man of integrity and feared God more than most people do. I said to them, the gates of Jerusalem are not to be opened until the sun is hot. While the gatekeepers are still on duty, have them shut the doors and bar them. Also appoint residents of Jerusalem as guards, some at their posts, some near their own houses.
Yeah. So we are a military city at this point in time.
Yeah. Now the city, this is verse 4, folks. Now the city was large and spacious, and there were few people in it, and the houses had not yet been rebuilt. So my God put it into my heart to assemble the nobles, the officials, and the common people for registration by families. I found the genealogical record of those who had been there first, or been the first to return. This is what I found written there.
Okay, I'll just stop us there for a second again and just say, notice that the houses hadn't been rebuilt. Remember the prophets. Hezekiah, was it Hezekiah wasn't a prophet, was he? What was the prophet we just did? Nahum. Was it Nahum we did? And Nahum was telling them, you need to stop working on your house and go and build the temple. During the period of Ezra, that last prophet that we did. And he was saying, you need to be working on the temple. So when you get to this point, you find out they did stop working on their houses and built the temple.
Okay.
And the walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'll read verse 6, but folks, I'm not going to read the verses after that because it's just family after family after family after family. But just bear with me for a second. Verse 6.
Very similar group that were in Ezra, by the way. Very similar. Yeah.
Okay. We've done Ezra before, right? No, just joking.
Yeah. We'll probably do it again before the end of the night. But.
I'm just joking. These are the people of the province who came up from the captivity of exiles, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had taken captive. They returned to Jerusalem and Judah, each to his own town, in the company of Zerubbabel, Joshua, Nehemiah, Azariah, Ramiah, a few others, Mordecai, Bishalan, and a few others. And then there's just a giant list of men of Israel.
Yeah. And the only thing I find interesting is they don't mention Ezra in that first group, but maybe because Ezra didn't come in quite the same way as these other ones. Zerubbabel was definitely the first.
Right.
And then, of course, all of the families and all of the priests.
And then the Levites.
So they were obviously keeping some form of records during the exile.
Yeah, like even the musicians, sorry,
Yeah.
the descendants of Asaph are there, right? Which is kind of interesting that they even catalog that.
Yeah.
Who served in
Yeah.
the temple pre-exile.
So someone was doing something right. Someone was doing something right.
Yeah. Where would you like me to start picking it up again, bud?
Keep going down. Just keep going down. So, and that's the end. And Ezra reads the law, which is what we started on last time. So again, the whole company there were 42,000 and 7,000 male and female slaves, 245 male and female singers, 736 horses. They tracked everything, right?
Yeah, mules, camels, donkeys,
and which were very important to the Israelites. They did the work, but remember also their kings rode in on donkeys.
That's right.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool thing, because Jesus, when he rode in on a donkey, he was very much saying, he was proclaiming his kingship at that point.
Yeah,
which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now they're all back, and so that's really, and then we get to chapter 8 where Ezra reads the law, and we did that one. We did that before, so we won't do that again tonight. But we'll just finish here and say they brought their records from where they were, and they reset up everything at this point in time. And then Ezra reads the law, and that's why Ezra and Nehemiah, why this book is so important. This period of time is so important, because you're going to get into like you're 450 now. Another 100 and a few years, you've got Alexander the Great coming through.
Yeah.
So I mean, for Israel, it's just one group after another that comes through. They were on a main highway, and they were on a really good path for trade and other things. So people are always coming through.
Right.
And there were always the wars that were going on there. And so them coming back, if from 450 on, is what we call the 400 silent years. So we say, after Ezra and Nehemiah, there's really nothing. Well, we say after Malachi, actually. But this is the period that there's now it's the intertestamental period. And there's a ton of stuff being written, but they usually don't attribute it to anything after this period of Ezra and Nehemiah.
Okay.
So really important period in Jewish history. It's what they call the Second Temple period.
And it seems like there's a very strong, the culture gets reestablished too, right? It's not just that the people come back and that they set up the wall and they have the temple, but they really take the law to new levels of obedience and adherence through the Pharisees and Sadducees eventually that appear in.
Yeah, and I don't know when the Pharisees and the Sadducees, when these groups start actually appearing. We should look into that a little bit, because that's getting closer to the first century after the Maccabean period that you start getting into these guys. I think you do have the synagogues and the rabbis, we think, come from this period of time, like from the period of the exile. And so everything is changing in Judaism, and yet they're holding on as tightly as they can to the law, to the first 5 books.
Beautiful.
It's kind of cool, really.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
what a great look into this time, like Larry says, a very pivotal time in Judaism. A lot of change is happening. We step into this moment where we, at least in terms of in the evangelical world, we say, oh, this is a quiet period of the intertestamental times. But many things are changing, and it leads us to the culture that Jesus runs into in the first century. All this is just laying the foundation of that culture that he runs into. Well, until, thank you so much for doing this, my friend. And folks, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We so appreciate it. We always love it that you come along. We're so honored the fact that we look in that over 200 people or even 300 last week actually listened to our podcast. So thanks for being part of that gang. We're highly honored.
Maybe one of the things that you can do is try to figure out all the places that we make mistakes while we're doing it.
It's not a drinking game, because we're trying to be a Christian podcast. I mean, some of us do, but anyway, I digress. But thanks so much for joining us, and yeah, we'll be back next week. Until then, I was Steve, he was Larry, and this was the Apoco.